It is no coincidence that the main gambling demographic in Australia are also the main consumers of sport. Men aged 18 to 35 years old are the common demographic associated with problemed gambling, driving up the national average losses of Australians up to $1,260 annually. Many of the men in this demographic claiming they'll lose double this in a year, and some even admitting there would be months they would lose more than this. This research was carried out by the New South Wales government last year. Throughout this presentation, I'll be looking to address this issue, assess how we got into this point in being identified as the worst gambling state in the world per capita, and the actions I will be looking to implement if I was in a position of power to alter New South Wales' current trajectory of becoming an even larger gambling crisis. In many countries around the world, the only place you can legally gamble on sports is inside of a casino. This is not the case for sports gambling in Australia, and it continues to become even more accessible with the advancing technology on all smartphones. From a cultural perspective, sports play a large part in Australia's national identity, and gambling on them is seen as a way to enhance that experience and feel even more a part of the game as a consumer. In conjunction with sports betting becoming more accessible, adverts and other related media produced by these sports betting agencies can be seen regularly at live sporting events, during broadcasts, and also seen on jerseys, all of which influencing young Australian kids to grow up believing gambling is a normal part of the Australian lifestyle, along with drinking. However, this is a battle for another time. Seeing role models wear the logos of these corporations, along with footy legends becoming involved working as presenters, such as Laurie Daly for TAB and Joel Caine for Sportsbet, is another way these agencies essentially groom minors to bet as soon as they turn 18 years old. The National Rugby League and Australian Football League's partnership with Sportsbet and their clubs advertising numerous different betting agencies on uniforms, signage, and advertisements playing during primetime television hours before, during, and after these football games encourages the consumer to gamble with the downloading of a simple app on these smartphones, becoming the main sports bet on within this country. With very few legal regulations being put in place up until recently, the bright marketing techniques used by these agencies overpowers the quick, bland government message, encouraging to do so responsibly, that briefly follows after. New legislation enforced by the New South Wales state government has cracked down on poker machine advertising on the exterior of venues and has limited advertising within to address the gambling problem caused by poker machines in our countries. So why shouldn't this apply to sports betting too? Sports betting agencies such as TAB saturates broadcasted live sporting events with adverts and do much the same in establishments such as this one, making placing a bet more attractive than ever and also more accessible, essentially teaching our youth that frequent gambling is of the social norm. Regarding this issue, solutions need to include decreasing the amount of gambling advertising during sporting events to reduce exposure to younger generations. Regulations already in place in Australia include a restriction of gambling advertising during live sports that occurred between 5 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. in order to limit exposure of younger audiences to these ads. However, loopholes mean that regulations only apply to live sport, and thus children are still exposed during commercial breaks and when actually attending the game live. Stricter advertising regulations would mean extending the time in which gambling ads are banned, thereby decreasing exposure of younger audiences to these ads. The effectiveness of stricter advertising regulations is evidenced through tobacco advertising in New South Wales. The Public Health Act of 2008 introduced new requirements, including that tobacco products must be stored out of sight, which has led to significant decline in tobacco sales. Gambling advertising should be limited to places such as pubs and casinos, whereby younger generations are not directly impacted and primary stakeholders such as gambling operators can still advertise. By limiting exposure, younger generations will be less inclined to understand or be influenced to gamble. Another way in which this issue may be addressed is through the use of responsible advertising within sporting arenas. Gradually cutting back on advertising is a way the leagues can still honour any contracts signed with the agencies until 2024, where we can then look to reevaluate the current situation. After the conclusion of the 2024 contract for both codes campaigns, the dramatic cut of restricted adverts to zero media advertisements and or billboards will be put into effect, channeling all advertisements into adult-only venues, with no gambling corporation logos to be visible from the outside, much like the poker machines spoken about earlier. If gambling trends fail to decrease, legislation may need to change once more to either ban any sports betting promotions or even follow in the footsteps of the anti-smoking campaigns, where the results of problem gambling can be highlighted. For example, an advertisement featuring a man who has gambled away his family's holiday savings, with his marriage on the rocks as a result. Furthermore, responsible gambling advertisements should be increased, with sponsorship deals made with sporting companies and celebrity endorsements utilized to promote responsible gambling behavior. In doing this, stakeholders involved in gambling are still able to obtain strong revenue, though whilst promoting a positive message. This process will be carried out over multiple years to ensure all stakeholders are catered for, whilst looking to obtain the original goal. At the conclusion of the large contract, new legislation minimizing the quantity of sports betting media will be put into effect, followed by the surveying of the results collected from this project, forcing the banning of all ads related to gambling, the gamble-aware advertisements, or the ads to be continued as they were. The implementation of this project is expected to help reduce the number of problem gamblers within not just the state, but the entire country through these restricted broadcasts. Thank you.